With that, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the sixth edition of the Voice of Glaciers Foundation's Glacier Dialogue series, and a very special welcome on the occasion of World Biodiversity Day that was yesterday. My name is Anurag Malu. I'm the founder of the Voice of Glaciers Foundation. It's a nonprofit working on preparedness and building institutional capacity in glacier-dependent regions of the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. And since February 2026, earlier this year, we started this Glacier Dialogue series, and that has become a monthly space where we invite speakers, experts from science, policy, conservation, and community voices that converge together around the glacier crisis. So I'll quickly, briefly walk you through where we have been so far. Our first dialogue, that focused on exploring science, what's happening to the Himalayan glaciers, and why the data matters. And the second dialogue focused on risk, the rising frequency of glacier-linked disasters across Hindu-Kush Himalayan region. Third dialogue focused on resilience and how communities are adapting on the ground. Fourth dialogue focused on storytelling, and then why narrative and culture are as important as policy. And fifth dialogue focused on climate migration and how human displacement is unfolding as in, like in mountain environment as they are destabilizing. And every session was really building on the last one. And today we arrive at a, question where like that sits at the heart of everything that we have discussed so far. What happens to the life and the species when glaciers disappear? When we talk about glaciers, we often talk about water, about rivers, about hydropower, about energy, about flood risk. All of these are critical. But there is an entire dimension of glacier loss that remains largely invisible in our conversations. The ecological dimension, the dimension that constitute biodiversity and loss of species. So when a glacier retreats, a wetland dries, a migratory route shifts, a species loses its habitat, a river changes its character and temperature. An entire food web begins to unravel. The Hindu Kush Himalayan region, home to over 63,700 glaciers, is also one of the most biodiverse mountain ecosystems on Earth, where we have alpine wetlands, glacier fed streams, high altitude meadows. And these are not just scenic landscapes, we say wow to, but they are also functioning ecosystem that supports life, that supports species that are found nowhere else, and that sustains communities and rivers stretching across the entire subcontinent in the larger region. So today we want to change that conversation, even if it's a little bit. So with that, we are very lucky and honestly very fortunate to have three exceptional voices with us today who bring decades of field experience in Himalayan conservation, ecology, and governance. First, would love to introduce Dr. Yashveer Bhatnagar, country representative of IUCN India. Dr. Yashveer brings over 3 decades of experience in wildlife conservation and ecological research with deep expertise in the Trans Himalayan region. He has worked extensively on snow leopard conservation, mountain ecosystems, and human wildlife coexistence across some of the most challenging landscapes on Earth. And before leading the IUCN India office, he has served with the Wildlife Institute of India, the Nature Conservation Foundation, and the Global Snow Leopard Ecosystem Protection Program. And today his presentation will also draw on maps and photographs of change he has seen across high altitude landscapes. So welcome, Dr. Yash. It's a pleasure to have you. Next we have is Dr. Pankaj Chandan. He's a senior wildlife scientist and country lead for Black-necked Crane India project. Dr. Pankaj is a wildlife biologist with over 25 years of field experience across the high altitude regions of India, China, Nepal, and Bhutan. Previously, he led WWF India's Himalayas programs for over 2 decades and is currently, the country lead for the Black-necked Crane India project, supported by the International Crane Foundation. He's a member of IUCN's Crane and Goose Specialist Group, and his presentation today will focus on the black-necked crane as a climate-sensitive species and the ecological shifts unfolding in Himalayan wetlands. And with that,
Thank you.
thank you, sir. Thank you. And then with that, we have Archana Chatterjee, ma'am. She is the program manager at IUCN India. She brings over 28 years of experience with international NGOs and UN organizations with deep expertise in wetland management, transboundary water governance, and biodiversity. She has served on the Ramsar Convention's scientific and technical review panel and has led landmark initiatives including UNESCO's World Heritage Biodiversity Program in India, and Archana ma'am will co-moderate the moderate like question answers, following the presentations. So with that, I welcome you all to our Glacier Dialogue 6 today. And before we begin, just want to set the tone that today's dialogue is not just it's not just an academic conversation. It's really about understanding what truly disappears when a glacier disappears. It's not just the ice that we lose, but how the living systems that depend on it also lose. So we'll start with Dr. Yashveer first, followed by Dr. Pankaj. Everyone will have 15 to 20 minutes of sharing their experiences, and then after those presentations, Archana will moderate a conversation, drawing on the insights, that they will share, and then after that, we'll open the floor to you, and in between, I will also jump in and ask questions. So with that, and Dr. Yashveer, over to you.
Thank you, Anuragji. Such a pleasure. Thank you for this opportunity. I mean, this is something that I really appreciate. Staying here in Delhi, it is, Himalaya look very distant, a place where I have spent over 30 years. So just talking and, very quickly putting this presentation together was actually actually an exercise which I loved. The presentation is not very great, but I think it'll do the
I mean,
job
people
of,
want to listen to your stories.
yes.
Presentation is just a supporting tool.
Let me see how best I can sort of weave together
Yeah,
and do justice to it. Okay, so
yeah, full screen.
yeah, can you see the full screen now?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, so thank you once again. And like I said, it is such a pleasure to be here speaking about glaciers. And if you look at this Google Earth image of the Hindu Kush Himalaya region, what you see is these white belts. Very often people think that they are glaciers, but of course they have glaciers, but there's a lot of snow, permanent snow, permafrost areas. So this is my stomping ground the last 30 odd years, mostly in the Western Himalaya, but in the Pamir, the Teen Shan and other mountains across, I have had the good fortune of working. And over the last 30 years, there are changes. There are changes that I have seen. So there is lived experience of climate change. There is lived experience of, villages where there was no deficiency of water. Now, water being a very, very prized commodity in the Trans-Himalaya. So there are these very stark changes in precipitation patterns, which we have seen, the cultivation, and of course, development has reached very remote corners in these Himalayas, very close to glaciers. Uh, all these areas are, not only in India, but for all the 12, 15 countries in this region, it's an area of, security concerns. There are borders, and it is something which has, related challenges for development and conservation. And very quickly, these are things that I think you all know, but I just wanted to um, just reiterate these points that Hindu Kush Himalaya, the entire region is helping about 2 billion people, mainly in the Indo-Gangetic Plain and the mainland China. plus several other marginalized communities across South Asia. These are the importance of water can't be overstated. And like Anurag ji mentioned, the so often we are talking in mainly in terms of disasters and the risk of disasters and the increasing disasters with the risk of with the climate change actually becoming much more evident, with loss of property and life being uh, fairly common across the entire range. Now, the people who live here are tough people. They across, very high altitude Himalaya, even the middle Himalaya, you don't really have a lot of agricultural land. So the region is agro-pastoral. Uh, Pastoralism is a very important part of their livelihood. Agriculture parcels of land are typically very small, limited by arable earth, and very importantly, water that they can get. There are some who are transhumant, going across over 200 kilometers and several kilometers annually they traverse. Like I said, the parcels of land can be very, very small, and the Ekautai living in these with few crops like barley, peas, and sometimes in near townships and cities, some vegetables and other cash crops are coming up. Uh, Also, in many parts, full-fledged cash crop economy is also coming in, but mainly limited to these small areas. And all this, is affected because of the disasters which are becoming much more frequent. So if you have perishable cash crops that you have produced, and if the roads are closed, the entire year's earning is from agriculture is sort of gone. So um, if I um, so as far as this talk is concerned, I just wanted to share a few thoughts. Uh, you know, they're mostly stories, but I have tried to divide it into three parts related to glaciers in life. And I have tried AI, so pardon me for these very gaudy images, but I think they express something. The animals are not very accurate. Snow leopard is fine. The ungulates aren't. But anyway, so this is a kind of a pristine looking ecosystem with, where people, wildlife, glaciers, water, clean water. It looks like a nice, beautiful, uh, area, which actually is true in many, many parts of the Himalaya and Central Asia. Now, like I was saying, we are talking about glacial retreat and biodiversity, and the three sort of parts that I have divided the talk are the new habitats are created. See, this is something that I have been hearing from lay people all the way to policymakers, that glacial retreat is happening. So basically, we are getting new habitat. So new habitat, basically, for animals like snow leopard, you are now having additional habitat. Yeah, I have some thoughts about that. But then there are other impacts on wildlife, on people. I'll speak about that and their interactions. Um, and also a few things about the glacier, rivers, streams, and people. Now, for this question about new habitats are created. So now we look at these typical glaciers, yeah, areas which are typically higher than 5,500 meters, going up into the, 6,000, 7,000 meter range. The glaciers are huge masses of ice, which are very gradually flowing down by gravity. And in the process, they are actually what creates all the valleys that we normally see in many of the mountain systems. And they carry a lot of rock, and which are pulverized, become, sand, silt, and go downstream into the lower downstream areas. Now, ICIMOD studies have compiled databases, and in the HKH, in the Hindu Kush Himalaya region, about 64,000 glaciers are there with about 6,000 square kilometers. They are spread about 56,000 square kilometers. But the declines are likely to be very, very vast. And in the last, 20 years itself, till 2020, 20% of the area was lost and 9% of the ice mass was lost. And by the turn of the century, globally, outside of the polar areas, there is an estimate that we would lose glacial area, about the size of Nepal. And also these mid-elevation, the smaller glaciers and the hanging glaciers, which come below 5,005 meter, they lose very fast. So the idea here is that if you have loss of habitat happening higher up, is there habitat being created? I'll just come to that. But the other part of the story is that the lower species start pushing upwards. And here you can see Betula and Ibis species, the trees and saplings. It's an again ICIMOD study which shows that across the years that they have documented, they can see that there is a certain increase towards higher elevation, especially of seedlings and saplings. So there is a push happening from below. The subalpine, the Krummholz zones seem to be pushing up. The trees and saplings are actually getting into alpine meadows and surviving there. Now, so the first question, which I just wanted to delve a minute or two on that, about what happens when a glacier retreats. So when a glacier retreats, it doesn't mean that you immediately have an habitat. Just look at it. The succession that would happen for a kind of a working habitat to be there in any land, in this case about the area of Nepal by the turn of the century, like they said, over the northern hemisphere or the non-polar areas. But in the Himalaya also, there is a huge area that they predict that would be where the glaciers would retreat. And I just wanted to quickly add also that there is also this whole issue of the permafrost areas, where those areas are also, getting more and more fragile. Permafrost is, frozen earth below the surface. And when that melts, it just makes the whole system, whole area quite fragile and prone to erosion. Now, when a glacier retreats, after that, after several years, you will start having lichens and mosses and some other, cushion plants, which will then establish, the soil will form, invertebrates will come, there will be more organic matter, some plants will come, and then, the smaller mammals, birds, and then the larger mammals and birds will start getting into this picture. So what I just wanted to add here is that any land, any glacial land that is vacated is not going to be inhabitable for centuries. So it's not really creating new habitat for any species of consequence in the foreseeable future. Now, the other thing that is happening at the bottom of the spectrum, very often people feel that, the lower areas, the forests will start ascending into the subalpine and into the alpine areas. But see, what is happening here is that the forests, of course, start getting some purchase in these lower areas, lower alpine and subalpine areas. But these areas are also becoming more habitable for people. So earlier, if people only had hamlets, now they can afford to have a year-round settlement. The moment there is a year-round settlement, you have got infrastructure that is coming into that area. So as a result, the whole setup starts, can start developing. With cultivation coming in here, and I have got some examples, there are other issues of interactions with wild animals that can begin in these areas. So The example that I want to quickly give here is about uh, this the second section of my conversation, which is about so what's happening with people and sorry wildlife. Now I'll take a few examples, and this is Kyang from Changthang. So the kyang is a amazing wild equid that occurs in the Tibetan Plateau, including the eastern parts of Ladakh. It's a very hardy animal, survives on very grasses and coarse forage. Um, and there is a sort of simmering conflict that is there between the kyang and the herders there, who basically herd the very prized Pashmina goats, the Changra goats. So there is a sort of a slight tension that these kyangs, they eat a lot and they are basically finishing off much of the forage, especially in some late summer autumn season. So this is something which was simmering for a long time. Uh, but there is another thing which is happening now, and which is that these are areas, the habitat is usually above 4,200 meters, where cultivation was unthinkable. So when I started off, 25, 30 years ago in Ladakh, people in Changthang were trying out, cultivating barley. But this is something that was just not establishing. It was certainly not seeding, but even the growth was very poor between July, August, June, July, August, that short growth season that they had there for cultivation. So there were no crops there. So even though there were a few attempts by the nomads who are getting sedentarized, but because of the climate change and the availability now, they are able to cultivate crops. They are able to cultivate barley, which is culturally very important. And now you have got a situation where Kyang actually are coming, breaking these fences and, praying, damaging the barley and the other crops that the Changpas grow, again, with very little water that they have access to. So it's a very important crop, but it is something which is just climate change has allowed cultivation to happen, seeding to happen, and now with more and more areas being occupied by these growing agriculture in Changthang, the crop damage related conflict with Kyang was also increasing. The other example is brown bears. Now, brown bears um, occurred in Lahul Spiti and Western Himalaya forever. They have always occurred there. And there has been some amount of conflict, but in places like Lahul and in Kargil, the extent of conflict is increasing and including crop damage. So imagine a large animal like brown bear when it raids crops like green peas or apple. It's a challenge for any kind of in any manner protecting the crops. So it's something which has again emerged in the last 2 decades, and it is linked with apple growing at about 3,000 meters down. So the moment you have apple in those crop fields that used to have potato or other barley and other crops, now there is a much greater attraction for bears to come and linger around villages. Although apple matures only in October, November, December, October, November, but they stay through this entire period, and there is now increasing conflicts between the very enterprising farmers in these areas and brown bears. Again, facilitated by climate change, which allowed a crop of apple and other cash crops like iceberg lettuce and others to grow here, and that has caused increasing problem that these farmers are now facing. And finally, I'd like to talk about the large versus the small glaciers. The large glaciers are retreating, and there are so many different figures about the extent, the rate of retreat that many of these glaciers are having. But I want to delve a bit on the small glacier. So this is a shot of Ladakh, Google Earth image. The large valley in the middle is Leh. So this is you can see these little specks of small glaciers. But these small glaciers that you see in the middle frame here, these are what are supplying water into the Nubra area and into the along the streams into all the villages which are located in these streams on the side. The river, as such, the Indus River is not really very useful for cultivation or even for potable water. It's for the villagers inhabiting these landscapes. It is these small glaciers which are feeding these the cultivation as well as for drinking water and all the other needs that the people have. So you can see that the villages are all along the side streams which have water which is almost perennial. The river water being, like I said, almost useless for local people at least. To a very large extent. Now, if large glaciers retreat by a few meters in a certain time period, what about these small glaciers, which are just a few hectares in size, which are basically feeding these small villages? And this is a big concern which is happening. And if you look at the rate of these glaciers vanishing, it's no joke. And I think some of the streams are now getting some water from the permafrost melt and others. But we are looking at maybe a generation, our generation or the next generation, which is going to face extremely serious problems for this. And when I say this, I also want to flag a quick point here that these glaciers and the small glaciers are what it normally feeds the upper meadows. The water that percolates on the side that basically maintains these meadows in the higher elevations also, which is important for wildlife too. So these areas are important for wildlife and for local people's livestock, and of course their own agriculture and life needs. So these are certain serious issues which are now arising because of climate change. Now again, you know what we can do here is work towards restoration, work towards community-based work for more rational grazing, livestock grazing, joint conservation, green jobs. So these are ways in which we can ensure that these mountain ecosystems thrive. We can't really, stop the retreat of the glaciers, but we can certainly have proactive adaptation to work towards, better planning and, conservation and modifying resilient livelihoods, both in terms of herding and cultivation, and also other green jobs like community-based tourism and nature-based infrastructure development for the areas, nature-based buildings, the traditional architecture being brought back, and better energy use, and so on. So the idea is that we look at this very pristine area with thriving wildlife, clean water, community earning through very green, clean tourism, clean energy in these areas, better education, better access for the communities, and the fact that the population should then thrive beautifully. And finally, I would just like to quickly mention, as far as IUCN is concerned, I would urge all of you to, look at this Glacier Action Network. Maybe we can speak about it subsequently also. But this is something that would be worth looking at. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Yash. I was like, wow, very insightful. Uh, Learning about the, just diverse landscapes and the changes that are you have seen on the ground. And then the interconnectedness of these ecosystems, whether it is glaciers or wetlands or grasslands, and then also the species that live there, more than human species, and then how that change is now getting more and more visible. I think it's just we need to start now carefully start looking at that change. And so, but thank you so much. It was very, I learned a lot myself. So very, very grateful for this presentation and look forward to also, work with you closely on the Glacier Action Network part in future. With that, welcoming you, Dr. Pankaj. Over to you. Let's hear about black-necked cranes and or about your work in the cryosphere. Over to you.
At the outset, I would like to thank Voice of Glaciers Foundation, Anurag, Shriya for this wonderful opportunity. And this is a wonderful initiative. At least we should get our common masses, civil society, citizens talk about this very, very important issue. I would also like to mention here that today I feel honored and blessed that my former boss, Archana Chatterjee, we worked together on this issue for almost 15 years in the region. And I was just thinking, me and Archana can talk about this topic for days and months because we spent almost 15 years on this particular initiative, very specifically focusing on high altitude wetlands. I am always also feeling blessed today that Dr. Yashvir Bhatnagar, whom I met as a student, MSc student in Ladakh during earlier careers of my life. So, with those few words, I would like to share my screen, and also I would like to mention that Dr. Yashvir Bhatnagar has very nicely uh, set a picture of basically what exactly is happening in high altitude regions and how that is impacting wildlife as well as communities. I always say poor and marginalized communities who live in those areas. And some of the last slides, which were AI images, in fact, Dr. Yashvir mentioned, where you can see snow leopard, black-necked cranes together in a particular area. I will like to again point out that this is real also. We have seen from our eyes these type of marvels of nature in high altitude regions. So my presentation will be mostly focusing on one particular aspect of wildlife which is getting impacted through the climate change in the region and their habitats, high altitude wetlands. So the picture here is of a Ramsar site, Lake Sumareri, and on the background you see a village, village Kurzuk, and this picture is basically from an area at an altitude of 15,000 feet above sea level. And what happens here, it's a unique area. Up there, you also beyond the village can see glaciers. And we have been looking at this landscape from our eyes from last 25 years. So we have this visual documentation in our minds about the changes which have happened in area like this. And I also like to point out that this lake remains frozen from December to February. It's a very deep water body, more than 120 meters deep. When we conducted a study on the bathymetric profile of this region, but then you can actually walk on this lake in winters. And this is the species. Again, thanks to Voice of Glaciers Foundation that I'm talking about this particular aspect about this bird. And this is I must say, this is a bird of glaciers, because it breeds at an altitude from 4,000 to 5,000 meters above sea level. Sometime it has like in India, there's a lake Yayaso, which is at an altitude of 4,800 meters above sea level, almost 17,000 feet. That's where this bird breeds. And this was one of the last of the crane species. For the sake of all those viewers about cranes, there are 15 species of cranes, and this was the last to be discovered of those 15 species. And India has 5 species of cranes. We have already lost one particular species, Siberian cranes, which used to come to Bharatpur in Rajasthan. But we still have 4 species: Demoiselle crane, common crane, Saras, and of course, this particular species which breeds in high altitude wetlands. And for the survival of this species, glaciers are very, very important. And also one particular aspect which I would like to highlight, that high altitude ecosystems are very, very sensitive ecosystems. And even a half degree change in temperature, 1 degree, can have disastrous consequences for the wildlife. And the picture in this picture here, you can see a nesting site of black-necked crane. This is the type of areas where these birds breed, and they make nests in high altitude wetlands. And Dr. Yashvir also mentioned that because of the melting of glaciers, many areas have increased, water has increased. And this is a case across the Tibetan Plateau, that because of melting of glaciers, more water bodies have been created in many areas. And that's a very small benefit for a small period of time, but longer run, you will have more dried areas. So what happens is, these bird uses these type of mounds, and if suddenly water melts, these mounds get flooded, and immediately the bird loses its nesting habitats. So that's the direct and immediate impact which has been documented over the years. We know some of the nesting sites which were flooded, and presently there are wetlands which are drying up in areas like Ladakh, even Qinghai, Tibetan Plateau as well, in a similar way. So, talking about black-necked cranes, this is the picture of Tibetan Plateau, and this shows that a very small area in India, in Ladakh, where the bird breeds. And these arrows basically demonstrate that this bird is a migratory bird, and these arrows are based on, or the transmitter-based scientific studies on migration of this particular species. So this also shows that how Tibetan Plateau is connected with the wetlands across Himalayas, and how this bird moves. So any changes in one area will have disastrous consequences in terms of ecological connectivity also for this particular region. And as Dr. Yashvir has mentioned, basically, not only for wildlife only, glaciers and melting of glaciers, climate change, besides being an ecological issue, is also an issue linked to the national security. And when you see Himalayas, this is the reason I said that by protecting these wetlands, these ecosystem, will be doing a great service to the nation as well. And if you see the image of India, these are the areas. Very recently, the bird has been also reported from Uttarakhand. There are a couple of places where the bird breeds in Sikkim, and of course, we see a very small wintering population in 2 prominent valleys of Arunachal Pradesh, Zimithang and Sangti Valley, where the bird is found. And all those areas are mostly high altitude areas. And then talking about how this species is a very, very climate sensitive species, if you see image down here, this is a lake, Yayaso, and this is the area where bird makes its nest very in a marshy area close to this particular lake. And then these water bodies are also contributing their water to the Indus. That's how basically we always say that these are nature's water tanks, basically contributing water towards mighty rivers in the Himalayas, as well as doing a great service basically by providing critical habitats for wildlife. This is how mighty rivers like Indus come into being because of these wetlands, which are habitats of birds like black-necked cranes. And if you see a bigger picture, how glaciers and water bodies are connected, and how this entire region, basically Tibetan Plateau region, across the different countries contributes its water. It's almost 29% global population which depends on water coming from this region. So we need to talk about this area. We need to document because a huge global population depends on this area, besides supporting a very critical wildlife which is there. And then how it gets impacted, you see, Ladakh is the only place in India where birds like black-necked crane and bar-headed goose breeds. So if you see the bar-headed goose again, it breeds on islands like this inside the bigger water bodies like Sumareri, Sokar, and along the Indus River. Imagine, and it has happened also to some of these islands, that suddenly glaciers melt up there, and because these lakes are closed basin, water level rises. 1 feet, half feet rise in the water level again has disastrous consequences for the breeding habitat of these birds. So this is how this particular issue of climate change, melting of glacier impacts the wildlife, especially very sensitive high Himalayan wildlife. And this is the bird, bar-headed goose, which loses its very important habitat of nesting because of such phenomena in the Himalayas. And there are many visible changes which are happening in this particular region. Another very common phenomena which was not earlier, which has been seen during like last 2 decades only, is the phenomena of flash floods, cloud bursts in this region. So we do need to talk about these and how this is phenomena is impacting not only wildlife but as well as communities. And I was also like to talk that why it's important for a person in high altitudes to keep an eye on the glaciers, for a person say Anurag who is in Rajasthan, because these birds are using their summer months, they are spending up there in high altitudes, and winters they migrate. So that's how these birds are also connecting the people from high altitudes and low altitude regions. And then again, talking about black-necked cranes, this is a very interesting image. If you see bird on the left side, it has a green tag on its right wing. And this tag was placed by a army officer way back 1995. I saw, and I and Archana were part of the team at that time. First time this bird in 2001. And after that, till 2013, the same pair was coming on the same mound and was breeding successfully. So that phenomena, site fidelity, any small changes in those glaciers can have disastrous consequences for those sites. So that was a very important documentation that 18 years a bird is coming to the same nesting site. And imagine how it impacts if we lose that particular mound because of melting of glacier, or the habitat gets dried up. And again, this is important because India only has 15 to 20 pairs of black-necked cranes. That's the only breeding population which we have. So each and every like habitat, each and every pair is critical for us. And also similar changes because of climate change are happening in, this is a habitat in Bhutan, Phobjika Valley of Bhutan, where birds, when they migrate in winters to the other areas, they spend winters in Phobjika Valley. And again, there also they need wetlands as their roosting sites. So what is happening in Phobjika, that many wetlands, Dr. Yashvi did talked about this phenomena, or basically we are losing those wetlands because invasive species of plants are occupying because of the changes in temperatures in that area. And there's a very important study going on in Bhutan on this particular aspect. Again, because of that, we are losing wildlife habitats. This is a habitat in China, Xiaohai Reserve, where almost 1100 birds come. And again, this wetland is also a glacier fed wetland. So any changes will have critical implications. I like to talk about this picture. This is the habitat behind me. This is the source of Yellow River, Gansu province of China. And these are the marshes, Rurgai marshes, where almost 4,000 black-necked cranes breed during summer months. Very, very critical. So on one side, this is the source of Yellow River. So that's how the area from where Yellow River in China originates. And on the other side, it contributes massively to the biodiversity as a very, very critical habitat again for the particular bird I follow in the region. These are the same cranes in Tibet as well. And alongside these cranes, some species, Dr. Yashvir can talk more about these, but they also share those habitats, Tibetan antelope in Ladakh. And one particular thing which was talked about, Dr. Yashvir, is impact on the biodiversity, especially on brown bears, how this is leading to conflict. And we have been watching this animal in Dras area of Kargil in Ladakh from many years. Very surprising facts are coming because this animal hibernates during winters, and nowadays it no longer hibernates. That is a implication on the biodiversity of climate change, because year round you can see this animal. So this is not good, because nature has its own kept its system away. The animal comes out in summers, winters, it hibernates, but that is also impacting their physiology, and that is leading to human wildlife conflicts. Also, another aspect I would like to talk about is glaciers impact entire Central Asian flyway. There's a flyway. Flyways are highways in the sky for the birds. So this is a Central Asian flyway is comprised of 30 countries with so many number of birds, and that water bodies which are where these birds mostly breed are high altitude wetlands. They act as airports. So imagine one or two airports removed from the map, and what consequences it will have on the flyway. Same is the with these birds. And that's how we have been advocating. I and Archana used a lot of platforms to highlight the impacts of climate change, to highlight the importance of this bird. This is one of the CMS meeting in Norway happening about 15 years back, where we promoted these birds as also an excellent flagship species for glaciers and high altitude wetlands. And from my side, what I would like to recommend to policymakers, to common man, is we need to secure their habitats. We need to minimize the infrastructure disturbance to the critical habitats they have. And in the longer run, my suggestion also to Voice of Glaciers Foundation is we should have this network not only in India but of other countries also, where we can talk about, because our wildlife is also moving across the region, and that is what connects glaciers across the Himalayas and wetlands in the region. And to conclude also, these areas not only important for water, for wildlife, but also for poor and marginalized communities. and again their life revolves around these glaciers, water, and grasslands which they provide, because in high altitude areas you can't do agriculture, you can't do much only way of sustaining livelihoods is nomadism. So the movement of these people is also impacted by these changes happening in the Himalayas, and sometimes sudden and abrupt snowfall like this. Imagine these marginalized community kind of hardship they suffer because of sudden snowfall, and then for even a small patch of grass they have to do huge efforts, which only we can see visually when we are there up in these areas. This is how I have spent almost 20 years of my life following this bird across the region. And those 20 years of work has also been compiled in the form of a book on black-necked crane. Anybody interested, I'll be happy to share the same. And with that, I think I would like to end my presentation, but with the appeal that let's be a friend of nature, let's celebrate this nature, what we have, and let's work together in whatever little way we can to protect these magnificent creatures of nature. Thank you. And I'm sorry I took a bit more time. Yeah.
No, it's absolutely okay. Thank you, Dr. Pankaj. What a remarkable presentation, Like, oh gosh. Uh, it brought me back to the first time almost 10 years ago when I saw black-necked cranes in Phobjika Valley in Bhutan. And was so lucky. We were like, I had a wildlife photographer friend with me. We were able to capture some really great photos. But and then last year in Ladakh, in Somoriri is where I saw the black-necked cranes, exactly on the
Okay.
same sites that you mentioned. Uh, but brilliant presentations, learned a lot. I think everyone feels so mesmerized. You can share, uh, audience, I'm requesting if you felt something, share your, messages or learnings or how you feel right now in the comments. With that, I would welcome, Archana Chatterjee, ma'am. She will co-moderate this conversation. We'll ask some questions to both of them, Dr. Yash and Dr. Pankaj, for let's say another 15 minutes, and then we'll open 15 minutes for Q&A with everyone, for all the audience. So feel free to write your, questions also in the chat if something they can already start to cover. So just use this opportunity to keep sharing your questions, and then in last 15 minutes I will ask you to unmute yourself and then ask questions directly to our speakers. So with that, Archana ma'am, please, over to you.
Thank you, Anurag, and thanks, Dr. Shreer and Pankaj, both of you for excellent presentations. I think I have seen Pankaj's presentation many times, worked with him on several presentations, but it's every time I learn something new from his, such a long sphere of work on this one particular species and this particular ecosystem in the high altitude Himalayas. Uh, I would also like to echo that when we started our work in the year 2000, when I was with WWF India, and we were starting to work in Ladakh when Ladakh was just opening to tourism, and we sort of, realized that this is one of the last frontiers, of nature, which was yet untouched. But with opening to tourism, it is going to be impacted. So we started to work there, but I don't know how much we have succeeded. But I think tourism has overrun the whole place, and I would also like to talk to both the speakers about it a bit later, about their own experiences and all. I just wanted to also highlight one very interesting, this thing from the Ramsar Convention. I was talking to Anurag, I think yesterday or day before, that as per the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands, the glaciers are recognized as wetlands. But unfortunately, I don't know why, when the wetland conservation and management rules in India were formulated, the glaciers were kept out of the definition. So while the glacier-fed wetlands are part of the definition of wetlands, but glaciers themselves are not. They are dealt with under other, cryospheric systems and with other ministries. And also, I think this particular dialogue links in beautifully with the theme of the Biodiversity Day, which was yesterday, and it should be, I mean, it's part of our work every day. So the theme this year was act locally and, for a global impact. So I think it fits in beautifully with this particular, dialogue that we are having. And I want to start with Dr. Yashveer. He should have shown this picture. I would just like to share my screen, if it's okay,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then ask the question. So just give me a moment. Oh, I have to send a request. Anurag, you have to approve the request.
Just allowed you. I should have made you the host.
Yes.
Done.
Share my screen. Just a second. Can you see?
And
Not yet.
not
No?
yet.
Okay, try again.
Yeah, something is
Can you
happening.
see now?
Yes, it's coming.
Yes.
Yes. I wanted to share this, Dr. Shreer.
You can full
Sorry,
screen.
yes, I just put it hurriedly together. Just to show that how the researchers work in the high altitude areas. So this is Dr. Ishvi's hut. I think 30 years and two avalanches, 30 years ago, I guess,
Yeah,
and two
yeah.
avalanches later. So this is where he has worked for his, the work that he showed in few slides. So kudos to all the researchers. And I think Pankaj also, he has not showed the hides that he created and how many hours he waited to, work on his species. So I just wanted to, Dr. Ishveer, I'll just stop sharing the screen. I just wanted to, reflect on the snow leopards and the tourism aspect, because snow leopard, as we saw in some of the recent work that we have done under the Himalaya for the Future, that the human wildlife conflict around snow leopard is quite significant in the Himalayan region. But of late, it is also becoming a tourism attraction, which is somehow, reducing this conflict is what the input we got from some of the people we talked to. So what is your view? Is it a good thing? I mean, how is it progressing in the Himalayan region?
So, yeah, this is a very interesting thing, Archana. The snow leopard sightability, because of various reasons, is decent. But once you know some basics, then it becomes much perhaps easier than maybe tigers in Ranthambore. So the point here is that snow leopards are very rare. The global estimates in 2 million square kilometers across 12 countries is just about 7,000. Yeah. So when snow leopard, its density is estimated at about 1.2 per 100 square kilometer, we say, wow, it's a good area. Yeah. So that's kind of density that snow leopards normally occur in. And with that sparse distribution, there are some areas where they focus on. There, multiple snow leopards might use a relatively small area seasonally.
Mm.
So, the key one of the key questions is how is it that what was called a gray ghost, Schaller spent years. Matheson wrote his book called Snow Leopard without seeing one, and it was like a mythical figure into the 90s and even early 2000s. But the myth was sort of broken with uh, global research happening to understand ecology, where it occurs, camera traps and others to actually locate. And in all these, at least in India, local communities were very, very integral part of the research work that happened. And the clear fallout of that was that when there was any, and there's the slightest potential, it was tried in Ladakh for the first time properly with the Snow Leopard Conservancy. The local community was deeply involved in winter, very, very, very committed tourists need to come when it is minus 25 to minus 35, 40, and when you had to stay in camps or homestays, which were not very developed in those days. It was something which then has grown in terms of the people's interest and word of mouth spreading across domestically and internationally. And there are other reasons like the whole combination of adventure tourism, wildlife tourism, winter, experiencing winters. I think all those things have combined. So the key point here is that these are agropastoral communities in Lahaul Spiti, in Ladakh, where this tourism is developed to some degree, not so much in Sikkim and other parts yet. Yeah, or even other parts of Snow Leopard Range, it is not very developed in the Central Asian mountains yet. But in India, it is something which is certainly shifting the uh, the attitude of people towards snow leopard. And the lesson from there is that if the communities are involved in such an exercise, that is very, very important. And when there is not just benefit, but notional benefit, but economic benefit that happens. It is a combination which helps in developing far greater tolerance in the communities to have snow leopards in their surrounding areas, and in fact feel proud about it, because culturally, heritage wise, there are stories which they at least in India, they are devtas, the wild ungulates and snow leopard. Yeah, they're devtas. I mean, redux. Redux is usually used for, re is mountain and dak is king. So they are used for ungulates, but also, snow leopards. Across Central Asia, they have a lot of reverence for snow leopard also. But here, I think the quick glacial or the climate change connect is also there, I think, because, the winters are slightly less, they are milder. Yeah. So when there is the people are able to bear, I think the people from outside who come are able to bear. Because I remember 30, 40 years ago, 30, 35 years ago, it was actually very, very intense in many of these areas with deep snow, very temperatures dropping regularly to minus 40 and all. So there is some, and also the fact that roads remain open in many parts. So the commuting remains slightly easier so there is a sort of angle towards of climate change, but then avalanches and other disasters are also happening. And I've already spoken quite a lot, but there is over tourism happening in pockets. Yeah. And that is completely another aspect, because I think in our country, regulation is very, very challenging. Even if it is community based, when there is so much profit and, there are occasions like in Spiti, where access is very difficult. A month and a half around the new year, you really can't get any accommodation there these days, in spite of the challenges of reaching there. So it's a combination of snow leopard tourism, wildlife tourism, and adventure tourism that I think is making it very difficult, which links to the other conservation threat of dogs, the free-ranging dogs, which
Yeah.
are a big issue. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I wanted
Sorry
to
for
ask
taking so
actually
much
about
time.
Kipsang, like we have all seen the wolf and the dog Kipsang in Ladakh now.
Yeah, yeah.
And is it also related to this? I would love to see if you can share like a lot more insights on like the emergence of growing Kipsang community in Ladakh and why it is happening. Is it directly linked with this, with the glaciers?
So, I mean, I wouldn't see a very clear glacial connect here, but the point is that, uh, it's the interconnectedness is there. It's about how we, how we are able to unravel it. But the clear is point is that we have overpopulation of dogs. Dogs are everywhere. Yeah, they sort of focus on the garbage bins. As winter comes, they disperse because garbage reduces. They start going hunting, competing with snow leopard, wolves, and there are the breeding seasons. So basically, there are dogs, both males and females, which are resident outside in a way into the wilderness areas. I mean, I know of camera trap images, which is about 1.5, 2 days walk, tough walk from the nearest village. You have got dog pictures there. Yeah, so it is like deep into sanctuaries and other areas, these free-ranging dogs occur. So, and I think hybridization is something that can happen, but the consequences of hybridization of a species, especially if they mix back into the wild population, is damaging, and it has consequences for conflict also, because of various reasons. Yeah.
Uh, Pankaj, are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, it got
yeah.
disconnected for some time.
We are having some, lag in the speech. Maybe you can switch off your camera, then it can save on some bandwidth. Yeah. So, Pankaj, on the
Yes.
same issue, I think we have worked together on this tourism issue and involving other stakeholders. You talked about very briefly, you touched upon the army, but we have, I mean, in the high altitude regions, the army presence, because it's all border area all across the high altitude Himalayan region. So involving them, I mean, can you share some of those wonderful experiences? Colonel Chaco, you mentioned that, who had tagged the blackneck crane, and the role of army also in conservation in these high altitude areas, which we tapped into and quite successfully. And what is it now? What is the condition now with respect to tourism?
Uh, Actually, talking about tourism, it's picking up, but still a lot more work needs to be done. Uh,
I think, Pankaj, you switch off your video. We can't hear you properly.
You can turn off your.
Specifically, Dr. Yashvir, can you?
Yeah. Yeah, go on.
Am I audible now?
Yeah, now better,
Yeah.
much better.
So talking about that aspect, and as I said, Himalayas is a border region. There's a huge presence of armed forces in this region, and I'm glad that even Ministry of Environment and Forest Government of India is taking many initiatives. Recently in Leh, there was a MOU between Wildlife Department and Indian Army on snow leopard conservation. So Army has immense role because of their presence, and also way they are contributing in the sighting records or for scientific data also, because there are many inaccessible areas where only Indian Army or ITBP is present. So they are like they can play a great role in this part also. So when you talk about that, are we doing it now also? Yes, I'm still like in Ladakh as well as in Arunachal Pradesh. We are in touch with the armed forces there, and in whatever way they can. But suddenly this needs much more bigger scale to happen. What is happening at present?
Right, Pankaj. And if you can also quickly touch on some of these, threats from tourism, And then, how we try to build a community led tourism around it, and it was functioning quite well and must be now also. So if you can just share in very quickly.
Uh, Basically, on this aspect of community-based tourism is very vital. And when you talk about threats about tourism in high altitude, tourism in these areas is totally different what tourism is in other areas. Tourism here is very seasonal, so it happens only for a particular few months of the time, and that time is also the peak period of biological activity. When I say May, June, July, August, this is the time when birds nest around wetlands, and the wetlands in high altitude are becoming very hot spots for tourists coming from plain other areas. One visible threat I have observed, it can be positive as well as negative as well, is the reason that a lot of tourists come with their small cameras and chase the bird. It has been seen many times. Tourists try to take photographs of nesting birds, birds on the eggs, try to disturb. So I think in that aspect, a lot more needs to be done on promoting this tourism in a very responsible way. And as Dr. Yashvir mentioned in that, I think local people can play a very critical role. And as we did earlier, it again needs to be done at a very bigger scale, building the capacities of the locals to own tourism. Because why a local community member will protect crane nesting site, why a local community member will protect a snow leopard? Because it gets revenue when tourists come in these areas, so there is economic connection also. So those things again need to be done at a much wider and much bigger scale, in addition to small areas.
Right. Thanks, Pankaj. I know there is, I don't know, 13, 14 minutes. Should
Yeah,
we
we have 15 minutes, then a lot of
should
questions.
we go to the audience?
Yeah,
I just
but
wanted one question each. One was about the artificial glaciers, because we're talking about the glaciers and this artificial glaciers or ice stupas. So I would like Dr. Ishwir and Pankaj both to reflect on, are these is this a good nature-based solution, or is it really helping? Because it's being hyped a lot. So what are your views? First, Dr. Ishwir, very quickly, and then
Yeah,
Pankaj.
yeah. So, I mean, see, this was tried out for the first time, Archana, by Dr. Norfel in Ladakh several decades ago, and then Mr. Sonam Wangchuk has been trying out other innovations. So the idea here is very important. That, like I was saying, that these small glaciers are what is responsible for the irrigation and potable water for villages, which are usually on the side valleys, the villages, kind of clinging on there. And they are having a lot of problem in accessing water these days, which is essentially these small glaciers at mid elevations. So they are usually at between 5,000 something and 6,000 meters is this belt of these glaciers, which are normally feeding many of these villages. But this is, for a successful crop, they need to sow their seeds, prepare the fields and sow their seeds in by early May. Yeah. So by April, they need to thaw the fields and start, irrigating and sowing the fields, barley and other crops. If they do that, then by mid-August they can get their crop, because after August, invariably frost sets in and the crop gets damaged. So it's a very small window in which they have to cultivate. But at this time, if they don't have enough water in the streams, because it's still very cold in April, May, and the streams in this side valleys is very sparse, and that is the time when they need water and they don't have enough water, and because of which they have to leave fields fallow. So if because of this small 15-20 day gap, they are not able to, cultivate sufficiently the already small parcels of land. So the utility of artificial glaciers is very important. And earlier, before that, they used to have certain ponds and above the village from where they would get the water when they needed. But again, the quantity and reliability of getting that pond filled up through the winter season was very, very sparse. So here it is about how the water which flows under the streams is harnessed for making the artificial glaciers, whether on a slope like Dr. Norfell had tried, or like the ice topaz, is a novel thing because it is in the lower areas close to the villages, and it can provide the much needed water at this stage. Now, see, it is any solution I have come to believe has implications, and it is the larger purpose which will need to be seen. But I can see that it can have diverting water in, through November onwards, through the winter, uh, can have consequences on, say, aquatic fauna and flora, yeah, downstream. It can also have impacts on the soil structure and uh, near the ice stupa. But again, it is, I think, about the larger purpose and the innovation. It's about how best we can get water for those 15-20 days. That is the crucial part. And I think this is a good innovation. Yeah.
Thank you. I think we've really run out of
Yeah.
time.
No,
So
let's
Anurag,
ask
over to
some
you.
questions.
It's
Thank
such
you.
a vast subject, so many questions, so many
Indeed.
reflections needed. Maybe another dialogue.
Yes. Maybe next one will also do with Surya, or from Acres of Ice, who has been automating these ice stupas,
Yeah.
taking forward the work that has been done by, Norfil sir and then Sonam Wangcho. So through automation and then making it much easier for communities downstream. So with that, let's open the questions. I see a couple of questions on the chat. So let's start with Shreyasi. Are you still here? There's a
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Yeah.
please go ahead.
I was just thank you for this talk. First of all, I just wanted to ask Mr. Yashvir about the creation of habitats part. So, I just had a quick question about that. Since humans were not around that point of time, is there something now that we like? Since we are here now, is there something that we can do so that we can decrease or that time period of millennium that you talked about? And I'm not really like, I don't think that it would be helpful if we are decreasing, but I just wanted to get your point of view about how you are thinking about if humans really started experimenting about creating habitats and decreasing that time period, will that be beneficial, or is it going to be in a different direction altogether?
So again, very, fascinating question. I was reading it on the chat also, Shashi. So, see, I think I don't really have a very good answer, but I'll just still try to respond. So, what we are basically saying is that whatever is wherever the glaciers retreat, we do some kind of restoration work so that we are able to enhance the succession. Yeah.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
so my guess is that it's going to be very tough because see, it is
Hmm.
going to be tough because it is about reliability of it's still very cold in those elevations. There is very little soil. Even if there is some soil, there is hardly any organic matter. So the succession will still have to go. We can supplement, but again, the whole cycle of the kind of chemicals that we are able to bring in. So it will be small patches. So it is like a small patches across where there is a potential. But bulk of the terminal moraines and the other moranic areas, if you see, they are bare rock. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So just if you have not seen already, please see some of the glaciers snouts, the terminal and the lateral moraines, the areas that are typically, where the glacier retreats, is very, very rocky and unstable. So I doubt if but I wouldn't say that it is not possible, but it is something which is really tough because it's about getting the soil. So creating soil which can then have those cushion plants, lichens, is, but it's an interesting question. I mean, something which, like I said, I don't have the answer now, but this is something that can be certainly tried out. Should be tried.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
Thank you, sir. There is a question from Anchal. Anchal, would you like to ask directly? Or you have seen the question, sir, on the comments? In Lahore, on the apple cultivation? Maybe you can answer. I'll quickly read then. In Lahore, people have started growing apples instead of potatoes since weather now favors it. Can we say this is one of a positive side of climate change happening in earlier dry, cold regions, even though concerning as the people?
Okay, so see, the thing is that climate change opens up opportunities, yeah, and the farmers are grabbing it, you know, to the degree that they can understand, and especially farmers in Lahore are extremely innovative. Uh, since they started potatoes, when the Moravian missionaries brought potatoes, and then they started cultivating potatoes at a time when um, you know there were limited market, and reaching it to the markets was very difficult. Yet they have been trying through potatoes, hops, and various crops, whatever they felt was had a market. But at these elevations, apple was not growing because of the climate there, and because of climate change, it started. And now many other crops, like I said, are growing there. Long term, a lot of fruiting trees are growing there, and of course, you know, crops like iceberg lettuce and others should be possible in the short growing season quite well, the temperate kind of crops. But so sorry, I missed the question. What was the question?
Anchal, are you here or should I read? The question is, I think it was more of a comment. Main question was like, is it a positive side of climate change happening in track?
Yeah.
You kind
Yeah.
of
So yes, yeah, it is. There are positives to, yeah, this also.
Angela, you have a question? You said you would like to directly ask.
Sorry, I just wanted to just link it to the comment that I had made in my presentation.
Yes, sir.
Uh,
I had a small query, actually, not
Angela,
exactly your question.
Can you please wait? Let him finish
sorry,
his remark.
Angela, I was just going to
Yes, sir, yes.
complete some
Sure,
thoughts
sir.
and answer. So I was just telling
Sorry.
that, in terms of what she was asking, the link I was making was to the whole this belt, you have the forest, and then you have the subalpine belt, and then you have the alpine meadows. So the idea is that these subalpine belts are usually not inhabitable, very inhabitable in the southern part of the Himalaya, that 3,000 plus minus meters belt. But that is increasingly becoming inhabitable, cultivable now. So these are the changes which are now happening, which is enabling, first of all, cultivation to happen, and also in some cases, other newer crops are possible. Yeah, Angela.
Hello,
Go ahead.
am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, sir, for your wonderful presentation. Actually, sir, I'm from a completely different background. I'm from a social science discipline, so it was very interesting for me and very new, very insightful. So it was like, I just have a small query, not exactly a question. Like, I wanted to know, like, as a researcher, how can we prepare, protect the downstream communities from the effects of, the upstream glacier melting because of any development interventions that has happened. Or for instance, in Sikkim, like the 2023 flash flood had a huge impact on the downstream communities, right? So, uh, how do we, like you talked about adaptation, like since you talked about the adaptation part, like how can we as researchers kind of, come up with uh, how can we mitigate or adapt? Uh,
Yes,
I
Angela,
mean, how
I
can
think
we come up with
this
something? I'm
is,
so sorry I couldn't put the question properly, but like I hope it makes sense. I mean, I'm sure I'm
yeah,
like,
I understood. And I'm
yeah,
sure this is where Apurna and
because there was a
Pankaj both will
huge
have.
impact in Sikkim. Yes.
It is a big, uh, the answer will take a long time itself.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So
Yes.
what I would really say is that adaptation, uh, you know, is about understanding vulnerabilities at a given site and better monitoring upstream.
Mhm.
And because what you are talking about is mostly in the context of disasters, but also in terms of adaptation in cultivation and other livelihoods that can be adopted by the lower elevation. So I think that is
Yes.
the where I'll stop, and maybe Pankaj and Rachana also may have some points here.
I think, sir,
Yes.
I would also like to echo the word because we need good science upstream. We need good documentation, good scientists who are over there documenting the impacts and then communicating, then using the platforms like Voice of Glaciers Foundation, communicating it to downstreams. I think that is the key. So, more and more recent disasters across Himalayas in Himachal, Ladakh, Uttarakhand. I think these are eye openers, even in Jammu and Kashmir, Kishtwar last year. So, what is critical is disaster risk reduction science and new technologies by which we can create early warning systems. Yeah, that's what is needed.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Any more questions? We can extend a little bit if both of you, like three of you, are okay for another 10-15 minutes. If
That's
there are
fine.
more
Yeah,
from
if
audience.
there are questions.
Thank you. Any more questions? Otherwise, I have some. No questions? Okay. Dr. Pankaj, I have a question for you. Like, what specific behavioral shifts that you have observed in last few years or, in last decades in your work with blackneck cranes, in terms of their breed timings and uh, any other migration related patterns that has come out very visible, or in terms of like if their chicks are able to survive, uh, directly like correlated with the changes in wetlands. So would love to know more detail on the what is really happening to you know uh,
Uh, Basically, I would like to document a bring forward a particular incidence in the November 2024, almost a couple of years back. What happened in November in Upper Indus Basin is suddenly we saw a group of cranes which was not migrating. And then we followed it till like mid-November, and then it became 25th November, and suddenly we were concerned that why? Because it migratory species should migrate from that particular area. Uh, what we found out later is interesting thing is that there were few garbage dumps in that area near Sir Numa. Uh, and those were close to the army camps, and the cranes were finding some easy food there. and they were reluctant to migrate. And then we raised this issue with the very senior higher authorities of our army. The garbage dump was removed. Weather was also bit favorable for the cranes at during that particular month. But moment the garbage dump was removed, the cranes migrated. So these are the changes which happen in these high altitude areas.
Crazy.
Other shift is also when they lost some of the mounds because of the sudden flooding. So they moved to nearby areas. They didn't abandon like nesting itself, but these are the changes we visually documented because of our field presence in that area. And these are also the issues species in long run. But for climate change, we need much more longer data over the coming years. Yeah.
I'm curious also, like, all the data, as conservationists that you capture and record is, like, I know IUCN has this red list of extinct species. In a similar way, do you think there is a need for something like this specific for cryosphere?
Mhm.
And is
Uh,
something like that has been done by IUCN or other, WWF or Nature Conservancy or anyone else?
IUCN maintains this like species related data, but for specifically for cryosphere, I think Archana and Dr. Yashvir can answer.
I can just add that IUCN has this tool called Red List of Ecosystems.
Mhm.
So we are, progressively taking up different ecosystems like we have done for mangroves. We are doing right now for the corals. So similarly, I think for the high altitude ecosystems as well, the red listing of ecosystems can be taken up. Definitely in partnership because IUCN cannot work in isolation. We need a lot of partnerships to do this. It's a very interesting tool. I mean, you can find it online, and we can definitely like red listing of species, the red listing of ecosystems as well can be done. And there's another tool which is green listing of protected areas and ecosystems, which is again, to show the good conservation measures and the guide, whatever good actions are being taken up, how it is enhancing the value of these ecosystems to people and biodiversity. So that tool is also there. So that can again be taken up.
Hmm. I have a kind of this rapid fire questions. What is that one thing we should do, people in downstream should do, you know, uh, like when, because these natural ecosystems are also so far for people living downstream. What should be that one action we all should focus on, you know, from our side that can also reduce the impact on the species upstream.
So if I may, um, again, I'll probably have to think about it. It certainly is not a rapid fire
Sorry.
answer that I can give. But there are. I mean, what comes to mind is essentially everything that needs to be done for species conservation, and why anybody, any citizen, government, other people need to be concerned about conservation in general. But we are talking in the context of Himalaya or the glacial cryosphere areas and wildlife in those high altitudes. So I would say that there are means that we can do in terms of our resource use. I mean, the each of these areas, high altitude animals and ecosystems require a lot of concerted conservation work. Uh, you know, Very briefly, it has to be community-based and nature-based solutions is the answer at landscape. So that's the way that it can be done. In terms of a common citizen, I think it is clearly awareness which should reflect in our lives. Yeah. And especially because there are so many of the people who are visiting these high altitudes now, behavior about solid waste and their own behavior out in the mountains, I think is a very crucial thing. So it's still a subset of the people who are downstream, but I'm still saying that because tourism, the way it is increasing across the Himalaya with roadblocks, traffic jams, 8 hours of waiting to get into Shimla or Manali and other places, it's not a joke. I mean, you are going there for a nice time and beautiful. Anyway, so this is something that I can go off on for half a day. But I think the point here is that uh, that is at least one part of dispersing ourselves in beautiful areas and being much more responsible. I think that is important. Pankaj.
Also, I would like to mention here that recent wars have taught us that we live in a globalized world and how small impact in one part of the world can have consequences. I think everyone has a role to keep a close eye, because if I am in plains and I think that glaciers are not going to impact, I am not living in a real world. So everybody has to bear in mind that whatever little they can do, even to talk about these issues is very, very critical. But in this globalized world, every small change in any part of the world will have, and same is true for nature also. If nature has some problem in some part of the world, it will have implications. So I think we need to, this is the right time to realize that we will be getting impacted no matter where we live, where we are, but we accordingly we have to contribute in our own ways. Yeah.
Anurag, can I add just one
Yes,
point?
please.
Maybe a dialogue, topic for you next time. So we at IUCN, we've also been working on this issue of black carbon, which is impacting the glaciers. And
Yes.
this black carbon is, an impact of our use of diesel vehicles, our use of all these, brick kilns and, other emission sources, the chulas and the burning of firewood and all that. So in this black carbon is impacting the glaciers and the smaller glaciers to melt early. So if we can, even with the army, we have tried that if there these huge diesel vehicles can adopt some, technology which is much more advanced, so that these emissions can be cut down. And interestingly, IUCN in this World Conservation Congress has a resolution on this, and we'll be, working around it with partners. So it's another issue which needs to be, tackled with respect to the glacier melt, localized glacier melting.
And also, just to quickly add, Archana, if you want a site for this particular work, is the Khardungla Glacier, which supplies its water to the Leh city. I think that can be a practical, demonstrable site where Army has its impact on, and black carbon, which is there. We should do at least a very small project on this.
Yes, definitely. Let's talk about it
Yeah.
with Anurag as well.
No,
Yes.
absolutely. Last year I visited Khardung Glacier. That was the first actually glacier I visited after 2 years, after my incident. And clearly remember that time exactly on 26th of June, 5,300 meters. Yeah, I still remember that first time I touched that glacier there. Uh, but I really look forward at how we can collaborate more in times to come. We have a lot to learn. We are a very young organization, just started last year, so would love to seeking your guidance and mentorship in building this work. So yeah, just as we close, I just want to take a moment to reflect and what we have heard. And we started with this question of what disappears when a glacier disappears. And then Dr. Yashveer, you showed us the scale of like what's changing across Himalayan landscapes, and Dr. Pankaj, you spoke about species like as black neck crane and how their story tells the story of also glaciers, and how that ecosystem is transforming. And Dr. Archana for wonderfully moderating these questions, bringing a lot more insights, because you know them so well, and some great questions have come, and a lot of these insights have been captured. And at the foundation, we like we will continue, like wants to understand what role, and because there are some legacy institutions like WWF, like IUCN, Nature Conservancy or Conservation International, those who have been working on the conservation front. We are not directly working at the conservation front. At the intersection of all of this, what role we could play as an foundation also, because protecting glaciers, we don't just see it's a, it's not just climate action, it is also biodiversity conservation, it is also water security, it is, as we say, like the smartest investment that we can make right now to protect the life, and then more money needs to, more climate finance needs to also come in upstream, which is hardly anything, so with that, we want to organize the next Glacier Dialogue. We'll also seek your recommendations, and if any great speakers you have in mind that we can bring. So we look forward to do that next month. And with that, thank you once again, everyone, for joining today. And look forward to, sending you all the, sorry, we look forward to, putting together the blog, in capturing all the insights from this. We'll also work on getting the video, this recording on YouTube channel, and we'll share with you within next couple of days. And so please stay tuned and look forward to your participation in the next dialogue. Thank you so much once again, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. Was a pleasure. Bye bye.
Bye bye.